more focus has moved now from the designing meter for tamper-proofing to data analysis. And it is optimizing cost per meter and also, getting more benefit out of it. So there is a shift now from meter to data.
Right. Thank you,
Let's
Sunil.
hear Mr. R.P. Singh. I think we will have a
Absolutely.
crescendo.
Thank you,
Because
Sunil, very much.
Thank
And
you,
let's
Arpit,
have
for a meeting.
RP
Thank you.
Singh sir on a totally different perspective on cost of this project, whether it's a state government or it's a consumer who should bear this burden.
Thank you.
RP Singh sir, thanks for taking time here.
Uh, okay. I'll actually give the context. Actually, UP. Can you see the screen?
And we can
Yes,
see your
yes,
presentation.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Before
Very
I
well.
begin my presentation, I'll just give the background context. In fact, I've been lucky to have an experience of dealing with smart meter rollout. One of the first experiments in 2018, whereby we allowed 4 million meters to be rolled out by EESL in 2018, and we had a mixed experience of that experiment, and my uh, views here are based on the lessons which we have learned from that and how I see the Indian power system emerging. Actually, the problem is that mostly we deal the power sector as a sectoral issue, which is a technical in nature. But I see it as a multi-sectoral approach, which is we have to see it in the political economic constant with a socio-economic aspect. And when we try to solve this problem through a technical approach, perhaps it may not fit into the design. Uh, for example, things were moving. We had many previous reforms like FRP, UDAY, etc., all with a noble objective of achieving the similar things which the RDSS is also trying to achieve. Then we had Saubhagya, which was with a good intention of improving the accessibility of the power sector, and it succeeded to a great extent. As Mr. Sai sir was saying, that capital grant which was provided by the government of India was a great contributor. However, in the power sector, the capital grant which is provided just washes away through the revenue losses which the discoms meet in very few years of time. If the target beneficiary or the group, if they do not have the capacity to repay, and in the Saubhagya scheme, in at least in UP, whatever has been added, more than 80% of that number belongs to the category which did not have the capacity to pay. Forget about the willingness to pay. So that is one context we have to also keep in mind. The third thing is that our grid structure is changing rapidly. We have the national determined commitment of achieving more than 50% of our capacity, and that means basically the grid will have flexible generation and flexible load both. And to meet that, we must have a smart grid. Mr. Rawal was correctly mentioning. We are trying to use a howitzer to kill a small deer. AT&C is a very small objective for to achieve through such a great building block of smart grid. Basically, smart meters are going to be the building block for the smart grid. So in the designing context, perhaps this aspect has not been given due consideration. And the last point, the context is that it's a one size fits all approach. That means give or take, you have to follow this. Whereas the distribution sector in every state varies from each other. The consumer mix is different, the load profile is different, the challenges are different, but we are trying to address through a common framework. So with this background, I now start with my presentation, and this is the objective which has been already talked about, so I'll not delve on this. And the scheme has been already discussed with 25 crore smart prepaid meter. Mind the word is prepaid meter installation. Now this prepaid meter, smart meter is welcome. Prepaid meter has got its own challenges, which I'll come to later. And this is the budgeting framework, out of which about 150 lakh, 1 lakh 50,000 crore is going towards the smart metering. And currently, we have about 100 million manufacturing capacity with 87 BIS certified meter manufacturers. And we have 51 AMISP impaneled, but incidentally or whatever, most of them do not have working experience with the distribution company. for them it's going to be a very, very tough time. And as on date, the National Smart Grid Mission tells about 230 million meters sanctioned and 50 million has been awarded. And SBD has been amended several times. Even RDSS has been also amended several times, in fact 7 times to be precise, to incorporate new conditions. Some of them are not aligned with the best practices. The benefits are there to the DISCOM level. The technical benefits are undeniable, undisputable. No one can even say a single thing against the smart metering. DISCOM circle level gains, DISCOM gains, the state gains by way of better analyzing the demands and energy forecasting and peak load, etc. And it improves upon the consumers gain, their experience goes better, they get empowered to monitor consumption pattern, etc., etc. The regulators gain, they get hold of the reliable statistics for planning and tariff determination, things like designing demand response, TOD, IO, etc., etc. And it also improves the compliance of performance in terms of SAIDI, SAIFI, etc. because they are the indicator already notified by various regulations and rules. But unless until the smart meters are there, you cannot have these things worked out individually. And innovative concepts like peer-to-peer energy transaction, we already had a pilot done in our state. The grid operators are also benefits. So overall, the technical benefits are enormous, no dispute about it. Now coming back to why the smart prepayment mode. The ministry, the background is the CEA, which is the authority to prescribe the regulation regarding the meters to be worked out, had recommended adoption of smart meter with prepayment feature. However, the ministry in its notification converted that it has to be compulsorily in prepayment mode. Now this compulsorily provision has brought in some challenges which I'll come to later, and these have said where it will be done and where it will not be done. It has in fact exempted the agriculture sector. That means the agriculture sector will not have any smart metering installed in that sector. So when you want to convert the whole grid into smart grid and you leave out part of the consumer group, you cannot convert it into a smart grid. That is one drawback when you exempt certain category of consumer from this scheme. And second thing is the AT&C losses are also primarily first through the agricultural consumption. And if agricultural consumption is exempted from smart metering through RDSS scheme notified by the Ministry of Power, then it destroys the very purpose of achieving a AT&C target. Now, my statistics is based on audited true-up data for 21-22 of the Uttar Pradesh DISCOMs. You know, we have about 3.21 crore consumers. And out of those 3.21 consumers, 1.45 crore consumers are lifeline consumers. Incidentally, most of them, about 80% of them were added during the Saubhagya scheme. So this 45% consumer, if you install a prepaid meter, what impact is going to have, I'll just share with you. And they consume 11.89 billion units of energy, which is 12.68% of the total. So their monthly bill is less than 300 and their average energy consumption per month is 68 unit. Okay. Now, the things will emerge when we come to the cost of implementing the smart meters. Then 48.5%, roughly 93% number is comprising of the domestic consumer. 4% of the agriculture which is exempted. Then remaining other commercial and others, technical, etc., they are definitely going to be helpful, but this 45.3 and 4, roughly 50% of consumers are going to be critical in the outcome of RDSS scheme. How they are going to be critical? Now let's come to the bidding which has been done by UP DISCOM for the RDSS project, and the letter of intent has been awarded for 9 clusters in UP. So what has come? The DPR which has been approved by the financial institution is roughly 21,834 crores. and the bid amount has come, which has been approved and LOI has been given, is 29.619% crores of the month, that which is in excess about 35% or 7,700 crore in excess. That means this fund is not going to come from the financial institution. From where it is going to come? Either the DISCOM or the consumers. And this incidentally accounts for roughly 3.5 years of full return on equity which we are giving to the DISCOM currently, which is about 2,300 crore annually. So it's more than 3.5 years crore of ROE will be go towards funding this. So the DISCOMs will have to bear this incremental investment. The cost which has been discovered in the bidding, that means once you install the meter, after that 93 months you can you have to provide the warranty. The lifetime cost has been discovered between 7,307 to 8,428 rupees. In different cluster, different rates have been discovered, and the monthly meter cost has been worked out as 78 to 90. So roughly we are we have assumed that is 85 rupees the average cost per month per meter. Now, if you convert this, RDSS has exempted the agriculture from the metering. This gives a legal risk to the whole scheme because the section 47.5 of the Electricity Act, you know, if you do the harmonious interpretation of the act, it says that person entitled to request deposit, it talks about, although it talks about the security deposit, it talks about person requiring the supplies prepared to take the supply through prepayment. So the consent of person in whose premises you are installing the prepaid meter, his consent is necessary. But the ministry's notification and the RDSS scheme makes it compulsory. So of course, neither the DISCOM is going to raise this issue nor the regulatory bodies are going to raise this issue. But someday some consumers may go into the court of writ and challenge that this is taking away this right. In any case, other distribution business has got the choice with the consumer. He chooses whether I'll have a postpaid or prepaid. So that is one of the legal risks which has emerged. The second legal risk which has also emerged is disconnection. Now, under section 56, you have to give necessarily 15 days notice for disconnection. How you can incorporate it in the prepaid mode, that is to be seen, because even if a balance becomes zero, you have to give him 15 days notice. That is as per the act, and you cannot amend the provisions of the act through a rule which is a subordinate legislation. So that issue is there, and consequential issue also arises is that the prepayment takes away his CGRF rights. So I think these challenges have to be addressed in coming days. I don't know how these things are challenged has to be seen. But these are the legal risks. Now coming back to the financial aspect, as I mentioned, 45% of the consumers consume 68 units per month at the rate of 3 rupees. So their monthly bill is 300. And as I mentioned, their monthly meter cost will be 85 rupees. So which is 28% of their monthly connection. And the AT&C losses is 20%. That means to reduce 20%, you have to make a financial expenditure of 28%. So how prudent is that is to be seen. That's what I'm saying. When you are designing the system, you have to design it for the specific situation. But somehow being a national scheme, it has this one size fits all approach. So that is one problem. The second problem is again the agriculture, which I mentioned, 4.3%, no metering, they become the bottomless pit. All the losses can be booked to them, and AT&C may or may not come depending upon the governance factor of the DISCOMs. And what will happen, since the billing and collection efficiency currently is about 80%, the improvement must come from the remaining consumer, which are CNI and others. Incidentally, most of them, they pay their bill on time as and when billed. So there is no incremental revenue accruing to the consumer because these consumers are already paying. whether you have a normal meter installed at the premises or a smart meter. With the smart meter, you'll have additional technical features which will give the benefit, but in financial terms, it will not give any benefit. Then 35% higher cost, as I have already stated. Now coming to the government of India, I still do not understand why government of India is trying to make money out of the RDSS scheme. The GST, which will be paid on a cost, about 8,000. They had initially worked out 6,000 to be the cost, but if the cost come out to be 8,000 per unit, the government of India will get more by way of GST, but it is giving less than the GST to this grant. So I think since the national object, the NDC, is given by the government of India, the grid benefits are coming to everyone. So why the cost of this scheme through grant should not be borne by the government of India in a higher proportion is still not understood. Then what will happen when the prepaid customers, we have talked about the vulnerable, which is the Saubhagya scheme consumer or lifeline consumers. Either they pay, then the DISCOM is going to lose. What will happen if they don't pay? If they don't pay, all the future revenue stream of the MSI SP will be blocked. It is gone forever, because there will no incremental cash flow which will accrue. Even you may have some sort of payment security mechanism, but that will trigger when only the bill is raised and the money is collected. But if you disconnect it, he doesn't have the capacity to pay, then there is no revenue. Then how the payment is going to come? So these are the things we have to think about. And I don't know, maybe the things might have developed, but net metering, the government recently has incorporated RTO framework for DERs, that means behind the meter, rooftop solar, etc., etc. That means they have to come in a big way. If you are going to promote rooftop solar, how you are going to do it in prepaid mode? Because the net metering arrangement is adjustment of energy. So some technical adjustment, I don't know, the technical side will work out. But currently I see that there is going to be implementation challenge. Either the smart meter rollout will get affected or the net metering will get affected, because they are going to be in contradiction with each other. About who will pay is a very interesting thing. On 16 September 2023, we have received a letter from Ministry of Power, which says that since the DISCOM will be making money per month more than between 18 to 40 rupees, there is no extra cost to be passed on to the consumer. That means the consumer will not have to pay for the smart meter charges. Incidentally, as a regulator, I also hold the same view, because the consumer has already paid for his meter, and if you are replacing the meter, if it is got defective, then perhaps you can recover that. But if you are changing the meter as per the DISCOM's wish and as per a law which is questionable, perhaps it will be difficult to recover cost from him. But the ministry itself has said that you cannot recover. So that means all the burden has now fallen upon the DISCOM, and the consumers have somehow, courtesy 2024, I think, this has been removed from the consumers' considerations. So this is one point I think we also need to cater. Coming back to this 10 years hand-holding is double-edged. This is an investment lending program, and we are trying to achieve a structural objective of reforming. Now, how the institutional capacity of the DISCOM staff will improve if they are not managing the structure itself? So I think it needs to be redesigned. Although hand-holding 93 months makes sense, but there has to be some compromise in between for improving upon the institutional capacity of the DISCOM employees. And of course, when you have the smart meters in the prepaid mode, the DISCOM have to also lose by way of working capital eligibility which is given to them in the tariff. and they have to pass on that discount. There is no, it's a revenue neutral thing. It has to be revenue neutral, because otherwise we allow them to borrow from the financial institution and allow them certain financial cost of that. But if they are taking that money in advance, they have to pass on, and it is also as per the ministry's guideline. Now coming back to the MISP risk. What has happened since the ministry has squeezed the timeline of implementation, lot of issues have arisen. The smart meter which we installed in 3,000 rupees in 2019 onwards is now being quoted as 8,000 rupees. Why? Because we have squeezed the time frame, and the availability and supply is limited, so everyone is quoting a higher price. And it happens with most of the government scheme. Whenever the government scheme comes, the prices of things go up. Most of the MISPs, what they have done, if you go and look at their equity base, sometimes I try to find out the big companies' equity base and the orders which they have procured, because at least they will need some 15-20% by way of equity for such a long duration project. I don't see it there. That means something is happening, that means it's getting loaded into the project. They are over leveraging it. So that risk is going to be with them only. This I have already said, that if the consumers get disconnected, then the revenue streams starts getting dried up, and the MISP, even they may hire escrow or PSM, whatever, they will not get. Then this is another socio-economic risk, that scheme, if it is implemented in a low income state where the willingness is lower, will have certain more risk. Another disconnect is that the BIS provides for manufacturer warranty of 5.5 years, whereas in the RDSS scheme it is 93 months. So something needs to be seen, that because what will happen, the cost will go up. So what is the rationale, etc., I am not aware of it, but this is the difference I found out. And the risk duration is too much. 93 months for doing everything, like including replacement of faulty meter, maintaining the last mile connectivity, cloud and IT services upgrades as and when required, is such a open-ended thing, because we have landed in the same dispute in UP. When they introduced this, they started with some Chinese meters. ESL did some import of Chinese meter with 2G technology. Now the 2G technology, I'll talk about that later also, but those risks remain. Then as mentioned, payment security mechanism is going to conflict with the existing seniority of payment mechanism of the generators. We already have many disputes in our state. What happens when you have a revenue stream and escrow is created and some generating company signs a payment security mechanism? The next one which comes only gets the senior claim on the senior excess one, which is more than the earlier one. So they have to prove that actually they are getting incremental revenue stream, then only they will get. Otherwise they will not get. So that thing has to be proven. What Mr. Rawal was saying is correct. It is very difficult to get the payment if one fails to understand, fails to establish there is a additionality in the revenue stream. Then GPRS technology is dying on, basically 2G based. Most of the first generation, they were based on 2G. Lot of problem. Connection disconnection rate was very poor. Lots of issues, etc. happened. I think now I presume that it will be an efficient one. It is a technologically better one which will come, and this will bring in additional risk of fighting for spectrum. The smart phone number is 60 crores. Add to it 25 crore smart meters, and many other smart equipments are coming based on cellular. So obviously, once you have that number in place, there are going to be increase in telecommunication charges, which will fall upon the MISP. Then in Europe, what has started happening? The technology companies, they have started charging IPR fee for technology used in 3G, 4G, etc. for smart meter communication. This disease is going to come today, tomorrow, or whatever. So this will also fall upon the AMISP companies. So what are the key takeaways? My view is that RDSS smart metering should extend beyond merely enhancing the bill collection efficiency and should be used as a building block for smart meters. And unless until we do that, it will not be a full value for money. And technically and skilled manpower availability has to be improved upon. If unless until we expand that implementation horizon, it's going to be very, very difficult. The subsidy which is provided by the government should be increased because they are also the central and the state government are the beneficiaries of this thing. This is going to help them in achieving their commitment, which is given to the decarbonization for the decarbonization of the grid. And comprehensive coverage is extended to all consumers. Unfortunately, private sector has been exempted. Their AT&C is okay, it is below the threshold. But if you want to make a smart grid, you should not distinguish between public and private, and therefore the private sector should also be made eligible under RDSS scheme. So these are some of my thoughts I thought I'll share with this forum, and thank you once again for giving me this opportunity.
Great. Excellent, sir. Thank you very much, RP Singh, sir. Very insightful presentation. And in fact, this is a perfect presentation to open floor for questions, open floor for observation from our many specialists on this power sector here. And then finally concluding it by Mr. Sardana sir and Sahil sir. But thank you very much, RP Singh, sir. Very insightful and very key points which you have touched are actually thought-provoking points. Thank you, sir. So, Sardana sir, if you permit, I think let's have observations from our experts who are present here, and then I leave it for you to summarize.
Yeah, sure. If there are any questions